And in fact, they actually removed emojis from text that show that there was satire and there was joking around by the PR crisis agents. I mean, the PR crisis agent was brought in because actually Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was planting stories negative to Justin. And all Justin wanted to do, and it's all through the text messages. If the New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages, they would have seen it. Justin never wanted to hurt her, never wanted to be negative to her. He wanted to protect the film, he wanted to protect himself, and he wanted to protect her from making negative allegations about him that were made up.
A $400 million legal firestorm, rumors of sexual misconduct, and two of Hollywood's most cherished icons caught in the crosshairs. This drama isn't just another celebrity dust-up. It's a high-stakes standoff that has fans and critics asking whether this explosive lawsuit will reshape the industry. The names alone are enough to make headlines. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, the power couple known for witty banter and a seemingly unshakable marriage, are battling back against eye-popping accusations from Justin Baldoni, the actor-director whose star has risen swiftly in Hollywood. The swirling allegations of harassment, conspiracy, and a vengeful legal takedown have fueled intense public curiosity. Everyone is bracing for what could become one of the most talked-about cases in recent memory. Yet there's more to this saga than meets the eye. Underneath the star-studded veneer lie broader questions about accountability, free speech, and the tangled intersection between legal rights and creative power. While Lively and Reynolds portray themselves as unwilling targets of a twisted campaign to silence a woman who spoke out, Baldoni insists he's the real victim, a man painted as a predator by people with more influence than he ever realized. Where does the truth lie? That's exactly what the courts will have to untangle. Before we delve into the details, one thing is clear. This isn't a simple he said, she said lawsuit. We're dealing with meticulously crafted legal motions, possibly millions in future damages, and a clash of reputations that stands to upend careers. The stakes are enormous, and the revelations have only just begun. If you think you've seen the last of Hollywood's salacious courtroom drama, get ready. The fireworks around this case threaten to overshadow everything we've witnessed so far. Long before the words sexual harassment and defamation reverberated through glossy magazine headlines, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni were, by most accounts, on relatively friendly terms. She was courted for a project titled Moments Ends With Us, which Baldoni and his production company Wayfair Studios aimed to catapult into the awards season spotlight. From the outside, it looked like an inspired match. Lively, fresh off critically acclaimed performances and beloved for her sense of style and humor, paired with Baldoni, who had garnered a swell of support for his efforts to highlight social issues through mainstream filmmaking. However, from the moment shooting began, whispers of friction wafted through the set. Some crew members quietly buzzed about creative clashes, particularly over Lively's portrayal of a central character. Rumors of tension ballooned when certain early scenes required heightened intimacy, apparently without a fully credentialed intimacy coordinator. Lively, known for her staunch professionalism and insistence on safe, respectful working conditions, allegedly felt ill at ease with how quickly some boundary-pushing sequences were arranged. Then came a series of eyebrow-raising interactions involving Justin Baldoni himself. He was said to have criticized her physical appearance in ways she found inappropriate. He reportedly wandered into her trailer unannounced and made offhand remarks that Lively considered personal and invasive. In Baldoni's version of events, these remarks were misconstrued or exaggerated, nothing but casual, friendly chatter. But the tension grew and the on-set climate began to feel charged, even before the script was fully wrapped. Behind the scenes, the situation was more complex. Crew members were uncertain how to handle the friction between a powerful leading lady and a hands-on director. Some quietly told each other, better to keep our heads down, while others sided with Lively, praising her for standing up for herself. Meanwhile, Baldoni felt blindsided by what he perceived as oversensitivity. He insisted his approach was about creative authenticity, not crossing personal boundaries, and so a series of small brushfires escalated, setting the stage for everything that would follow. But that wasn't the whole story. What began as behind-the-scenes frustration soon exploded under the glare of public scrutiny. In January of this year, Justin Baldoni filed a staggering $400 million lawsuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and several individuals associated with them, including Lively's publicist and the PR firm that represents her. To outsiders, the number alone was shocking. Why demand that much money? According to Baldoni, his name and career were on the line. courtesy of what he labeled a calculated smear campaign. His formal complaint read like a sensational narrative, alleging that Lively had conspired to manufacture sexual harassment claims. Why? Baldoni claimed it was all to seize control of the film, push him out of key creative decisions, and possibly overshadow his production company's stake. The lawsuit hammered the notion that Lively was playing a Machiavellian long game, quietly documenting every instance of discomfort on set, then threatening to go public if Baldoni didn't cave to her every request. The words vengeful, rambling, and retaliatory echoed throughout, capturing the attention of both fans and legal analysts. To many, the notion that Lively, often described as sweet, poised, and philanthropic, could orchestrate such a plan seemed hard to believe. Yet Baldoni's complaint insisted that was exactly the point. Lively's public image gave her the advantage of credibility, making it all the more perilous for him if she turned on him. He cited a list of alleged demands from Lively that he said crossed the line into extortion territory. The lawsuit insisted she wanted to rewrite or heavily edit entire chunks of the script, dismiss particular crew members at her whim, and push for an intimacy coordinator too late in the process, all while painting Baldoni as a perpetual boundary crosser. Some observers rolled their eyes. Others thought the complaint's bombshell figure of $400 million was deliberate, a tactic to garner headlines and strike fear into the hearts of Lively and Reynolds. Regardless of one's stance, the sheer magnitude of the lawsuit made it nearly impossible to ignore, catapulting the conflict into the mainstream news cycle. Suddenly, everyone from entertainment bloggers to highbrow legal publications had an opinion on whether Baldoni was bravely taking on an A-lister or had embarked on a reckless, career-ruining gambit. And what happened next would shock everyone. While Baldoni was out front demanding hundreds of millions of dollars in damages, Lively fired back with her own set of claims. She accused Baldoni and Wayfair Studios of multiple instances of sexual harassment, from an unauthorized simulated nude scene to graphic discussions of personal intimacy that left her feeling disturbed. She also maintained that a friend of Baldoni's was allowed to play a medical professional during a pivotal birth scene, again without the oversight typically mandated by an intimacy coordinator or a union-approved professional. According to Lively, these were not misunderstandings or overreactions. Instead, they were violations of her rights as a performer and human being. Crucially, Lively and her legal team leaned heavily on California's Assembly Bill 933, sometimes referred to as the Me Too bill. It's enshrined under Civil Code Section 47.1, protecting individuals who speak out about alleged sexual misconduct, especially in legal proceedings. Passed to ensure that victims or witnesses of predatory behavior are not muzzled by defamation threats, this legislation was precisely what Lively's attorneys needed to argue that Baldoni's $400 million suit was an unlawful attempt to silence her. The entire dispute then hinged on a delicate interplay of who was telling the truth. Lively argued that she had every right to voice concerns about what happened on set. Baldoni, in turn, insisted Lively had invented or grossly exaggerated the incidents in question to gain leverage. But California's legal standards for defamation in sexual harassment contexts are notoriously tough. Anyone bringing a defamation claim must show actual malice and prove the statements were knowingly false, an uphill battle in the best of circumstances. Adding a dramatic twist, Lively also produced evidence that the production team scrambled to accommodate her demands precisely because they recognized wrongdoing on set. Her lawyers pointed to a 17-point list of protections she wanted for a return to filming. The list was apparently signed by Baldoni's colleagues, which, in Lively's view, amounted to an admission that her complaints were legitimate. Baldoni, however, insisted that he only agreed out of fear she would take everything public. Caught between two drastically different interpretations of events, the public was left wondering who was right and which set of allegations carried more weight. But that wasn't all Lively had in her arsenal. No stranger to the spotlight or comedic one-liners, Ryan Reynolds found himself dragged into the heart of a legal tempest without even appearing in the film. Why? Baldoni claimed that Reynolds, in solidarity with his wife, labeled Baldoni a predator during a private discussion with a talent agency executive. The lawsuit alleged that this name-calling amounted to defamation, painting Baldoni as a perpetrator of sexual harassment without any legitimate proof. Reynolds, never one to shrink from a confrontation, responded with his own motion to dismiss, calling the lawsuit a burn book of petty grievances designed to punish him for standing by his wife. According to Reynolds, there was more to the story. He argued that labeling someone a predator in a personal conversation could be seen as an expression of opinion or rhetorical hyperbole, shielded by free speech protections, particularly under New York's robust anti-SLAP laws. SLAP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation, meaning a lawsuit that tries to intimidate or silence a critic through burdensome legal costs. The heart of Reynolds' position was that if his wife's accounts of harassment were sincere, then describing Baldoni in negative terms, especially in private, didn't automatically qualify as defamation. His legal team also pointed out that Baldoni himself had publicly admitted to personal struggles in past interviews and podcasts, including a self-confessed track record of mistreating women. So, Reynolds argued, calling him a predator might not be that far-fetched. On top of that, Reynolds hammered home that Baldoni had included him in the lawsuit purely because he was Blake Lively's spouse, essentially punishing him for being supportive. This raised fundamental questions about where the line between protected opinion and defamatory statement begins and ends. Critics of Reynolds' stance argued that casually labeling someone a predator in a professional context could cause serious damage to a person's reputation. Reynolds' supporters, on the other hand, applauded him for staunchly defending his wife, seeing the case as an attempt to weaponize the courts against a woman who dared to speak out. Yet, that was just one piece of the puzzle. There was still Baldoni's side of the story, and he wasn't about to let the power couple have the final word. From Baldoni's vantage point, his reputation and livelihood were under siege. His attorneys painted a picture of a man blindsided by manipulative allegations and forced into signing documents he vehemently disagreed with. He strenuously denied that any of his actions on set constituted sexual harassment. Yes, he admitted he had walked into Lively's trailer at certain times and made candid remarks, but he insisted these encounters were either consensual discussions, playful banter, or run-of-the-mill production matters inflated to look sinister. He also rejected the idea that an unqualified individual was placed in a sensitive medical role purely because of poor oversight. According to Baldoni, everything that happened on set was done with the best intentions, though he conceded that, in hindsight, some steps could have been more carefully handled. Yet to him, these oversights were not evidence of purposeful harassment. They were typical Hollywood growing pains, easily blown out of proportion if someone wanted to exploit them. Where Lively and Reynolds saw a quest for accountability, Baldoni saw a coldly calculated move to push him out of the creative process. He believed Lively had harnessed the powerful wave of Me Too protections to effectively muzzle him. The resulting lawsuit, in his telling, was his only shot at protecting his name and brand. After all, having even a whiff of predatory behavior attached to one's public profile could cripple a career. And so, in court, Baldoni's attorneys hammered away at the alleged actual malice behind Lively's claims. If she truly knew he was innocent and still accused him anyway, that was defamation, potentially on a massive scale. One notable dimension of Baldoni's counterattack involved what's known as the continuing publication doctrine. If Lively's claims were republished or rehashed within a year of the lawsuit in press interviews, social media, or new court filings, Baldoni could argue that each repetition restarts the statute of limitations for defamation. That angle might keep his case alive even if some alleged defamatory remarks were made over a year before the filing. For the moment, it remains unclear whether this line of reasoning will stand, but it's one more sign that Baldoni won't go down without a fight. And that fight was about to escalate into an all-encompassing legal showdown. For many bystanders, the crux of the case rests on whether the judge will dismiss Baldoni's lawsuit outright or allow it to proceed to trial. Lively's legal team slammed Baldoni's complaint as vengeful and rambling, emphasizing that California's sexual harassment privilege, the litigation privilege, and the fair report privilege shield Lively from defamation liability. They argued that if Baldoni brought claims in California, he also subjected himself to its protections for those who speak out about harassment, no matter how uncomfortable or damaging to a director's reputation it might be. If the court sides with Lively and Reynolds, not only could Baldoni's lawsuit be thrown out, but he and Wayfair Studios may also be on the hook for paying Lively's and Reynolds' legal fees, potentially plus treble damages and punitive damages. Some experts predict the financial blow could be devastating, assuming the allegations and legal theories line up in Lively's favor. Critics of Baldoni's approach worry that the entire fiasco might boomerang on him, bankrupting Wayfair Studios and tarnishing his name permanently. On the flip side, if the court denies the couple's motions to dismiss, we could see a trial that dwarfs previous Hollywood fiascos. Imagine star-studded witness lists, sensational text messages displayed on big screens, and direct testimony from Lively and Baldoni about exactly what transpired during filming. The potential for explosive revelations is practically limitless. Observers predict that each side would dig deep into personal communications, production logs, and behind-the-scenes recordings to prove or disprove allegations of harassment or defamation. For the paparazzi and entertainment outlets, it could become the trial of the decade. Caught in the middle of all this is the question of good faith versus cynicism. Did Lively genuinely believe she was harassed, Or did she manipulate the narrative to secure more influence on a project that might catapult her to greater creative recognition? Did Baldoni make an innocent series of blunders on set? Or did he knowingly cross boundaries in a way that justified Lively's alarm? The lines blur when star power, money, and public opinion converge. But beyond the immediate stakes of who wins or loses lurks a bigger question about the shape of Hollywood's future. All eyes are on this lawsuit, not merely because it involves household names, but because it strikes at the heart of how Hollywood is evolving post-Me Too. The wave of accountability that once toppled industry giants hasn't gone away. Many now wonder if Lively's case will embolden more performers to speak out, or conversely, make them fear the possibility of monstrous defamation countersuits. If Baldoni's $400 million pursuit is taken seriously by the courts, it could set a precedent that deters alleged victims from coming forward. No one wants to risk being slapped with crippling financial demands. Then there's the free speech angle. Reynolds' supposed predator comment underscores the precariousness of strong language in private and public forums. If a mere label can spawn a colossal defamation action, how might that chill speech in creative and business circles? Are we heading toward an environment where no one dares to voice concerns about potential wrongdoing? In the end, the real significance of this bitter legal wrangle might extend beyond the fortunes of Lively, Reynolds, or Baldoni. Their confrontation highlights what happens when powerful personalities collide over money, image, and moral standpoints in an industry teeming with hidden pressures. It's also a wake-up call for anyone who thought the era of hush-hush settlements and buried misconduct allegations was behind us. Regardless of how the judges and juries lean, we're witnessing a confrontation that will likely spur deeper debates around contract protections, on-set standards, and the very definition of workplace respect. For those watching, the final outcome remains unclear. But one thing's for sure, this saga has already shaken the entertainment world, sowing distrust and raising the stakes for every big-budget production that claims to be safe for its talent. Whether Lively and Reynolds triumph and force Baldoni to absorb massive penalties, or whether Baldoni succeeds in convincing a jury he's the real victim, this case will be a landmark. It may well serve as a reminder that in Hollywood, a single lawsuit, especially one this size, can unravel careers, redefine alliances, and even shift cultural norms about accountability. Where this ends is anyone's guess. For now, what began as a tense on-set dispute over personal boundaries could end up rewriting the script on celebrity litigation. And as the legal teams lock horns and the drama spirals on, the world is left to ask, is this the ultimate cautionary tale of greed, ambition, and vengeance? Or is it the beginning of a broader transformation of the entertainment industry's power dynamics? Only time and the court's final word will provide the answers.